This is a conversation between Stephen Wang and myself. Stephen is the founder of Dubb, where we were seed investors. Dubb has decided to connect influencer creator investors, folks that are out there putting up great returns with great takes on their own, and marrying that with people interested in investing in them. They've spent a long time in the background building the business, and the last year have had just totally ripping success. So he and I dig into what it's been like across that journey, what the ultimate vision for Dubb is, and where they want to take it. What up, Steven? How you doing, man? Bank account's all full now.
The pressure's on. It's time to execute.
What's
But in all
yeah?
seriousness,
What's the quick news that's the catalyst for getting a little more message out of it? And we'll dig into what's going on.
so we just closed our $30 million Series A. We've almost raised $50 million now. And it's been a 4-year journey. It's been almost 4 years since we closed our last round. So we survived through the fintech winter, starting in late 2021 up until now. It's been pretty incredible after launching the product in just less than 12 months. We've scaled up very significantly in terms of ARR, user growth. We've crossed 100 million Americans who've downloaded the app. So it's all up and to the right. And now we just got to make this grow faster.
What's the Dubb meme? Like, if there's a meme, what's the Sam is famous for like elevator pitches aren't enough. You got to have like a meme worthy startup now. What do you find is like the most shareable thing about Dubb?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
As
The
you think,
punching
I'll
one liner.
explain. I'll say that like part of the success of Dubb, I think, is meme worthy investing, candidly. You know what I mean? That people can understand
Yeah.
themes and names, and it actually it's kind of core to the thesis at Dubb is like that people are quickly getting interested in investing themes, right? That are not
Yeah.
communicated in a traditional way.
Where my head goes to in the one-liners, it's no longer about trading stocks. You're picking people to invest. And it's like fundamentally, I think what we're driving home is like there's been like we see this shift in consumer behavior from now following in the past. You're looking at all these P ratios hitting by a bunch of screens, but now it's really following what's in the zeitgeist. What is that new hot thing? And people are deploying capital behind products that they use, people that they hear about. They're influenced by all these other people that are out there that they think are smart. They're telling them what to invest. In many ways, like Warren Buffett's the OG influencer, hosts that conference every year that everyone wants to go to. But also, it's been around for sort of
Wait,
a long time.
hit on that more. Let's get a little more on Warren Buffett as the OG
Yeah. So
influencer investor.
think about it. This man every single year can sell tickets for thousands of dollars and drag people out into the middle of nowhere in Omaha, Nebraska. Who wants to go to Omaha, Nebraska? And people will sit down and listen to this guy talk. He's on stage for hours. And all you're doing is doing that. And after that, he moves the markets. He'll probably billions of impressions of coverage. Everyone's talking about what he's investing in. People have written books on his books. And he's really changed the game. And I think he's built this cult following around value investing and sort of long-term capital deployment. And now every venture capital firm now wants to become the Berkshire Hathaway permanent capital. So I think this guy's completely radically changed how every asset manager thinks about building the biggest firm possible. And for the biggest winners, you have to go follow his model. So I think that in itself, the influence reflects
So
across the industry.
what role does Dubb play in that world?
Dubb's mission is to create, or in many ways is to create the next 5 Warren Buffetts. What Warren Buffett did is he built a cult following of retail investors around him that invest billions, not Berkshire Hathaway's worth $1 trillion now, that buy his stock. And in the same way that he's built this platform through media, through his conversation, Dubb is trying to do that and empower anyone who's the next great stock picker to more easily build that same following. When you come to Dubb now and you publish your portfolio, let's say you're good at investing, we're immediately putting what you're doing and you're investing in front of 1 million plus eyeballs, right? That is distribution. What we're unlocking is we're simplifying distribution for great talent. And the other side of that is, hey, what do people do when they invest? When you invest, you're fundamentally implying that you want to make more money. That's the whole reason you invest. You want more returns. So we're just streamlining that process of hopefully a regular retail investor discovering someone who can potentially make them more money. And we built that platform to easily facilitate that transition of capital. That's what you're doing when you're buying Berkshire Hathaway. You buy a stock of Berkshire Hathaway, that goes to sort of Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett's now investing sort of that money across his hundreds of businesses, right? So in many ways, we're doing that exact same
I love
thing.
it.
We just built the modern rails for, honestly, asset management. If you think about it, asset management, what Warren Buffett is doing, is the largest industry in the world. I think there's $100+ trillion of assets being managed globally. That is where every 401k, Roth IRA account goes to. It is how money moves global.
So if you're right, who loses?
Oh, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard. These are the incumbents who have built the greatest asset management businesses in America, the biggest financial retail markets in the world. And they're stodgy, they're outdated. And how did they grow to almost $10 trillion of assets each? They built and honestly invented the modern day asset management industry with the first ETFs, the first index funds, the biggest passive vehicles. You think the S&P 500, that's State Street, but you get the picture, right? And that's why people still have their money with them, right? They have the staying power. They built also Schwab, originally the very first marketplace connecting retail investors and RAs with fund managers. That was their one source model that exploded Schwab's business in the early 2000s. So Dubb, like, we're actually not reinventing anything. We're just reimagining how this existing industry works by packaging it in sort of a modern way and a modern UI and a modern UX with much better distribution.
I mean, is it fair to say that the vision becomes you're an amazing Fidelity portfolio manager? Why give them such a huge rake, right? If you have the right ideas and the right picks, if they're just connecting you to capital with some administration, that Dubb does that a lot more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. When you're working at Fidelity, they pay you a salary, maybe a little bit of the returns, the assets. Fidelity's probably making the majority of that management fee that they're charging the portfolio. If you think about a Fidelity portfolio, I doubt majority of people can even name the portfolio manager behind that Fidelity fund that you're investing in, right? But they are the ones behind the scenes doing the hard work. When you're working at Fidelity, the work that you put in as a great investor is accruing to the brand, not you as the individual. And over the past 5 to 10 years, we've seen people buck against that trend and break out successfully. Kathy Wood, for example, she came out of AllianceBernstein. Yes, she may not have been the best from a return standpoint, but it doesn't change the fact that she alone has gathered 10 billion plus of assets in less than sort of 10 years and 60, 70 billion at her height. Right? So how do we enable anyone to do that? Take control of their own narrative, take control of their own skill and monetize it and capture most of the value and accrue it to themselves versus giving it away to some institution.
For the investors listening who passed, what were the early skeptics right about, and what were they ultimately very wrong about? You know, like, what do you give people credit for being skeptical of, and then what do you kind of like, here's what's actually worked that people discounted or missed?
Yeah, I think we got a lot of skepticism around this copy trading being this like really risky sort of meme sort of type of investing that didn't have really any staying power. But I think what has worked and what has proven to be more and more true is people are viewing Dubb not as this like fun meme copy trading platform, but as the platform to find your next new quote unquote money manager. Right. And for anyone that's out there, when you have money, you are finding an expert to trust your capital with. If you make $50 million, you're probably calling up your fancy Goldman Sachs wealth manager and figuring out how to deploy this capital. And they're investing that in a hedge fund and a private equity firm and all these different diversified assets for you. So I think what's been exciting is people are really seeing Dubb now as this fun, new, exciting, modern platform, but really something that also has the institutional sort of staying power of this professionalized form of investing, but now more in a familiar and sort of fun way.
What was an oh shit I was right moment? I mean, I think there's actually two talk tracks that are helpful. There is the reality of building in regulated industries, and so maybe you can talk people through how much work went in. Just like you had to put a lot of work in just to run the core experiment against the thesis you really cared about. So maybe you can talk through that, and then kind of what was the first card flip after that where you're like, oh, fuck, we ran the experiment. I might be right.
We've been around for 4 years, but we launched in March of 2024. So that's a pretty big disparate gap between when we started and when we actually released the very first product. They're kind of like the Figma story. We were heads down, locked in for the first 3 years. And the majority of that was getting a regulatory license. We're a FINRA registered, FINRA member broker dealer. And we're also an SEC approved investment advisor. Both of those things, like in the lens that we're doing it from a standpoint of copy trading, we're the first. We're the first in the United States. People have done this maybe internationally where the regulations are less strict, but we were really paving the way for building this new modern way to deploy capital. And that wasn't an easy process to go through. I think like there's two paths that we could approach it. One is like just say, screw the regulators, we're going to go off and sort of do this, and we're going to like take some big risks. Or path number two, which is the path that we took, was like, how do we be thoughtful about this? How do we actually work with the regulators to make sure that we're doing this the right way? And I think we learned our lessons from a lot of the predecessor companies who sort of went 100% and sort of got pulled back and facing pretty significant sort of drawdowns as they were going through that process. It took around 2 years since we started the process to actually get our broker-dealer license. Specifically, we are now the very first and still the only brokerage to offer copy trade in the United States. And I'd say the oh shit moment is we launched March of 2024 on CNBC. And the moment we went live with the app, we saw that first oh shit moment, like product market fit spike. And we just saw the charts rail off the roof and shit was breaking left and right. In that first week, we were locked in. We didn't have any customer support. And it honestly hasn't stopped since then. It's been that sort of dreamlike state of the hockey stick growth. And I think I'll be very honest. I think like leading up to that moment, you always have this skepticism, right? Before it's finally out there, you just don't know what's going to happen. And yes, like you rallied your entire team and you've even convinced yourself for 3 years that this was something that was worth working on. So I'll be very honest. I was damn scared. I was very scared of sort of what that very first day and what those first couple of weeks would look like. And I think of course, I'm very happy it paid off, but I think that reflects just the intentionality, just how gritty and resilient this team was for the first 3 years and just locking ourselves away in a room and just building and building and going towards this vision that has now really become a reality. And I think we're just getting started.
What's the next big milestone? And not like, hey, no numbers, no boring milestone. Like, what's the next card flip? What do you think the next like, oh shit moment is?
So since day one, we've actually been a completely paid product. We go on a free version. You have a 7-day free trial, and then you have to pay $100 a year, basically. We've grown this far, this fast, was having a very dated product. $100 a year is pretty significant for most people, right? So in the next 2 months, we're actually about to launch the very first free version of Dubb. We were going freemium. And I think once we launch that, I think we're going to see growth in terms of just raw user numbers just go off the charts, right? And part of the tradition is, hey, we built this great business from 0 to sort of 1 now that's been very efficient from a cash flow perspective and very sort of CAC to LTV positive, however you want to think about that. But now I think to get to the next level of really scaling up and 2, really leaning into the marketplace network effects that are intrinsic to the business, we have to have a free version. I think that changes how we think about the business. What are the metrics we're optimizing for? Now it's really going to be about how fast can we scale funded accounts, right? And in brokerage land, once you open the funded account, it may be expensive to acquire day one, but there's like 10 other ways to monetize it down the line. Very similar. You want to watch what Robinhood's doing now. You launch a credit card, you launch retirement accounts, all those massively margin increase. Because like that funded account usually doesn't churn. So we're real excited about that. We think we've just tap the very first little bit of explosive growth that will really be unleashed once we can just grow like crazy from a word of mouth perspective and creators attracting follow copiers and sort of vice versa.
Is there one creator out there that you're just like constantly fishing for? That'll be a huge win if they convert.
I think we've got some names, but I would say I think we've been pretty successful over the past couple months where we've really started scaling up our creator efforts. People know Dubb now. In the past, I'd be lost in the Twitter DMs or the X DM. No one to give me the time of day. But now people listen. They know the brand. They've seen the success. And I'm very blessed to be in a position where, hey, people see the value that we're creating. I think ultimately, I think that the most surprising, well, not the most surprising thing, but a part of the vision that's really clarified for me. And honestly, just looking at the data and seeing who our customers are, I feel being at Asian immigrant that grew up without the most money in the US and investing has transformed my life and it's the base of this company. It's been pretty cool to see just how Dubb is spreading the wealth and the geographies. It's not really the coast. We've got a lot of people down south in the Midwest, people that traditionally just don't have access to the more sophisticated investing. We're really bringing that to them in a way where now you don't need to learn how to invest, right? You're just trusting someone who has already been doing this their entire lives. I think fundamentally that's a much better way of onboarding and getting people more familiar and comfortable with this complex thing of investing. And ultimately, that goes towards this, I think, this Dubb's real vision and mission, which is like, how can we move the needle on closing the wealth gap and seeing the impact they're already making on bringing on these people who never invest to invest and deploy capital, having the confidence to do it for the first time. I think something that's really exciting and is really anchoring this company. And I think is very in tune with what the nation and Americans are feeling sort of right now. So I'm very excited about as we take Dubb and make it even more accessible by going free the first time, and also scaling this as fast as we can.
Nice, dude. That's a good ending note, unless you have any questions for me.
I got a question for you, Will. Like, what's it been like watching me the past 4 years? And oh, yeah, I love our conversations. So they always challenge me to think in bigger, bolder ways, but also be very disciplined to sort of the numbers and honestly, like answering the most important question at sort of any given moment. I think that's something that I've definitely learned from you on how to run good experiments to sort of arrive from that to that.
Yeah, man, it's been amazing. I mean, you're obviously super young when you kick this off, and you still are super young, and you've had to deal with the roller coaster of easy markets from a capital side, hard markets, tough team dynamics, regular. And so I don't know. I look at him like, holy shit, he's now got a clean balance sheet growth and kind of been through probably 10 years of founder CEO dynamics in 3 or 4. And I think the most important part, I think even you would say you came into it probably a little starry eyed about what it takes or what it's like to be building a startup. And I think now you're like a pretty ruthless machine who understands the game, cares about equity efficiency, understands how capital compounds. My North Star that I've been saying lately is like people who want to manipulate, kind of maximize and manipulate 3 markets, markets for customers, talent, and capital. And I think you now are like spiking on all 3 right at a time that you have a bunch of momentum and capital, which is super sweet to see. I'm super excited. And I think I'm glad you touched on that because you know that from the first meeting, my whole thing was like, oh, this is what Charles Schwab looks like if it gets reinvented, right? That they really dominated this marketplace model, but with mutual fund complexes who still stood between retail and the ultimate stock picker asset allocator. And it's just the arc of history that you slowly cut away right at the intermediaries involved, and you add more technology for more efficiencies. And so you have somebody who can take less of a rake, connect more people, and still have a fantastic business. And I don't know, seems like you're on your way, dude.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. It's been a
All right,
pleasure to
bud.
partner with you for the last 4 and cheers to the next 4.
There we go, dude. Rock and roll.
Yeah.
All right, good to see you, bud.
Awesome.
Later. Thanks for making it through all of that. As always, smash the subscribe button. I think that's what everybody says. And more importantly, let us know if you don't agree. We always love being disagreed with. You can follow me on Twitter at WQuist, QUIST, or follow Slow. They retweet most of everything all of us say anyway. So at SLOW. And we'll see you next time.